You're probably going to hear a lot about LCMs in the next few weeks, which means Latent Consistency Models. And basically they allow you to generate images in lower steps, 4 to 8 steps. I'm going to link this in the description below. This is a pretty important breakthrough because we haven't really heard much about SDXL since it's been launched. And now with these distilled models, it makes it possible for people like us with lower end GPUs to run SDXL and even Stable Diffusion 1.5 a lot quicker and more efficiently. Now just to show you really quickly, I already have one set up for SDXL. I'm just going to go ahead and run it in real time, and you see that by the time I finish talking, it's going to be done. Now I've been averaging roughly about 4.5 to 4.7 seconds for one image at 1024 by 1024 and 13 seconds for 4 images. Now with that being said, today I'm just going to show you a couple of things. The first one is the latent consistency loras, and one of the models, the SSD1B version. In the description below, I'll leave a link to this page. Go over to Latent Consistency Models loras, and this first one for SDXL, we're going to click on that, and we simply just have to go to Files, and the one you want to download is this one that says PyTorch LoRa Weight Safe Tensors. Now you'll have to rename it, so I suggest that you just copy and paste this. Click on the arrow and navigate to your LoRa folder. So I'm using ComfyUI for this. For now, there's support for ComfyUI. Fooocus has it as well, and I believe SDNext has it. I checked for support for Automatic 1111, but apparently it's not there yet. So when you save it, just rename it LCM LoRa SDXL like this. There's also a Stable Diffusion 1.5 version, and we're going to do the same thing here. Copy and paste this. Go to Files and download this file. You see that it's named the same way. That's why I encourage you to name it based on the LCM. And then the third one you want to download is the SSD1B version. And once you copy and paste that name, go to Files, same process. See, they're all named the same thing. Now what's different about the SSD? If we go back to the main page here, you see there's a section for LCM weights, which is your safe tensor models. There's one for SDXL, but we don't need to use it. And then there's one for SSD. You want to click that and then do the same thing. The one I downloaded is the 5.3 gigabyte version. Once again, rename that, and this would go into your checkpoint folder. So I'm going to run this again and show you the back end here. This one took 5 seconds only because I'm recording in the background. So half a second slower, but that's still pretty quick. Now, if we look at the image here, it looks pretty decent. However, I will tell you for artistic stuff, you can get away with using this. But for more photorealistic images, you'll start to see that it's not the greatest for it. Let me show you an example of an Indian chief prompt that I often use to do my testing. As this generates, you're going to see that when you look up close, it's not the greatest image. So let's open up this one. You can see the skin texture looks very leathery. There's even some weird texturing going on there. Same thing with this image here. So when it comes to photorealism, it's not there yet, but for artistic style images, still pretty usable. Now let's talk about how to use this properly. In ComfyUI, you first want to go to your manager and make sure you have the appropriate nodes to use this. Obviously, you'd need the ComfyUI manager. I also encourage you to install WAS Node Suite if you don't already have it. But these are the two you want, the LCM sampler, ComfyUI, and latent consistency model for ComfyUI. And then there's another node here, LCM in-paint and out-painting. I haven't tested this yet, but perhaps I'll do it in another video, but assuming you can use this for in-painting and out-painting. And you'll just have to click install on the right here, reset Comfy, and you're good to go. So let's start from the beginning. It's super simple. Just load a default template and put in your prompt as you normally would. And then you want to right click on Add Node, Loaders, Load LoRa. Then we want to connect the model to model here and clip to clip, and then model to the K sampler. Now when it comes to SDXL, the ideal here is that it can be used with any SDXL model. I'm just going to use the base model for now. And then for the LoRa, you want to find the LCM LoRa SDXL version, okay? That's pretty much all you have to do to this template. However, a couple things. Let's set this to 1024 first. So we want to put 1024 in our empty latent. And then steps, ideally, you want to stay between 2 to 8. So I'm just going to choose 4. I find 4 and 5 is pretty good. CFG, you want to keep it 1 to 2. So I find 1.3 to 1.5 ideal. Now the nodes that we installed earlier will give you this LCM sampler. So you want to select that. Now theoretically, you can use any of the other samplers, but this one is specifically for these loras and models. For scheduler, you want to switch it to SGM uniform. Once again, you can experiment. Cue your image. Let's see what we come up with. So yeah, that was pretty quick, right? So let me open this image. It's not a bad image for our artistic stuff, but in terms of the details, it's a bit lacking. But I can see conceptual use cases for this. Let's run 4 this time. And as I said before, it's about 13 seconds for a 3060 Ti 8GB card. Runs much more quicker and efficiently. The biggest issue is the quality, right? So let's look at these ones. They're not terrible. As I said, for more artistic stuff, it does pretty well. But for photorealism, the quality is just not great. Now here's using Xavi Chroma as the base model. And yeah, in this case, it looks pretty decent. Let me open up this one here and let's take a good look at it. So from a distance, very passable. It's only when you really pixel peep where you see the shortcomings. And in this case, Xavi Chroma seems to be a good base model with this particular LoRa. So you're going to have to experiment and see what works for you. Now let's use the same prompt, and this time we're going to use the SSD checkpoint. So let's load that. And there's also a LoRa for it. Let's run some images and compare. And I'll tell you off the bat, the SSD version, think of it as SDXL light, but I mean very light. It's okay. It's pretty decent, you know, when you use them in combination. Let's take a look at the other images here. Let's open up this one. You're going to notice these weird lines. The wrinkles seem overly done. But overall, the way I see it, it's progress. And if we can get a full SDXL model to be as efficient as this, along with SDXL ControlNet, that's going to be exciting times. Now, for Stable Diffusion 1.5, maybe a different story. I'm going to go ahead and load an SD 1.5 model. Let's use something like Realistic Vision. We'll use the SD 1.5 LCM for this. I'm going to change the dimensions to something more favorable. Otherwise, we'll probably get warped results. I'm going to run this live, and the beautiful thing about the Stable Diffusion 1.5 version, it's really, really fast. So 4 images took me just under 5 seconds, and if we look at the quality, it's actually really good compared to the SDXL version. Even for SD 1.5, this is a great breakthrough, especially for people with lower hardware requirements. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what your experiences are using these LCMs. Until next video, my friends, I'll see you when I see you.